Welcome to Season 4, Episode number 8 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our Saudi Arabian Grand Prix preview. You've got Andy, and I'm along with John tonight, who's subbing in for James, who is hopefully, sipping a pina colada somewhere on the coast of Florida. John, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing well. Hopefully James got better weather than I had when I was down there, and no rain and no cold weather coming through. So hopefully he's got some nice weather and he's enjoying it. Got his feet kicked up. I think his birthday's this week, so hopefully he's relaxing and enjoying that. But yeah, doing well. It's crazy. We're already in race 2. I like these back-to-backs, at least for a little bit, and then I get tired. But it's cool to be on here midweek talking F1. So happy to join you, Andy.
Yeah, thank you very much, like I said, for coming on. So you can find our show on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and, of course, YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast. Please see the link tree in our show notes. If you're on YouTube, do us a solid and click the like and subscribe button. Or if you're on your favorite podcasting app, do us a favor and click that 5-star review. That definitely helps us bring more content to you that much quicker. You can email our show at chatnow@outlapf1.com. James has got the keys to the Ferrari on the website, but I don't think he's actually turned them yet. But you can check out our website, www.outlapf1.com. As always, please do feel free to check out our F1 for Beginners. That's our Season 4, Episode 4, or you can check it out on YouTube as part of our F1 for Beginners series that we've parsed that up to try to make enable you to get that content that much easier. You don't have to go through the whole episode in order to find a particular answer that you're looking for. Please feel free to check out our other co-host, Deanna, who's not with us tonight, but her Bahrain race review is up and out. As she would say, it's a great time, so please feel free to go check that out. And just as a reminder, if you'd like to become our newest member of the Outlap F1 Nation and join the likes of such distinguished people as Cody Walsh, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Richard Cole, Travis Colby, Timothy Brown, Hillary LaRose, Mary Brown, Jonathan Scott, and of course, Matt Polanski from the Red Sector MotoGP podcast. Please check out our support page on our website or our link in our show notes to our support page. Anything that you'd like to give will go back into the show. That's what we're using it for. We've got some soundboard stuff, and we've seen probably the newest enhancements to our YouTube channel. So that's where it's all going. So please feel free to check that out if you are so inclined. We'll be eternally grateful. Just as a reminder, please do check out also the good folks at Manscaped. Use our code OUTLAP, OUTLAP, one word, and get the 20% off and free shipping. Those products are great, so I can vouch for them. They definitely work. Just as a final reminder, please do check out our Outlap F1 Fantasy League. I think somehow, some way I'm leading in the coasts, but I don't think I'm leading in the overall. But check out the code in our show notes. We would love to have you participate and interact with us through the Fantasy League, which is actually quite fun. I'm finding I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, for sure. And don't be like James and forget to reset your rosters. I know values have changed. I think you have until green flag in Q1. I think.
Okay, yeah, probably that would make sense.
So you can watch some practice, get a feel for things. But yeah, values I believe are changing every week for the most part. I'm sure Leclerc's value has skyrocketed, so James is probably going to have to make some adjustments on his side to make sure you're within the payroll or salary cap that they give you. But yeah, so friendly reminder: don't be like me. For most times, I do fantasy and forget to reset. That's why I'm so bad at fantasy football.
Yeah, this is the set it and forget it fantasy league. You do have to kind of do some maintenance on it, but that's also what makes it fun. You get to kind of evolve as the season evolves. So
yeah, absolutely.
It'll be good stuff and good fun. So before we hop into our Saudi Arabian Grand Prix preview proper, we do have a little bit of news we wanted to talk about. The first story that came out earlier today, and super shout out to ESPN's own Andy Hall for tagging our show on this. But ESPN announced some record-breaking ratings in the good old US of A. The Bahrain Grand Prix from last week averaged, I believe it was 1.35 million people watching it. It's the second most F1 watched race of all time. Second only to the 1995 Brazilian Grand Prix, which also aired on ESPN way back then. So wow, I mean, F1's a hot ticket in the U.S. This is kind of, we're living the dream here.
Yeah, I think I tweeted back at him, and Andy, I really appreciate you tagging us. It's awesome. If you're ever interested in coming on the show and just talking F1, the door's always open for sure. But yeah, I think I responded back, and it said, like, I've been wishing for this. I know you have too, for basically nearly 2 decades. And honestly, I never thought we would get to this point. Obviously, Drive to Survive has a huge impact, and as a whole, but the package is getting better. It's just the team. You got more and more American companies and teams. Thinking Zach Brown, type guys that are getting involved in the sport. The involvement with IndyCar and just kind of that correlation there is just so many factors that are going in. It's just the perfect storm, and it's been phenomenal. Obviously, last year was a hell of a great season throughout. Just an insane title battle. So yeah, it's kind of blowing my mind to see this. Obviously, the time of last race was pretty beneficial for sure. It was right there in the prime time for, it wasn't like a 6 a.m. race or something like that.
Yep.
But it just goes to show you that people are tuning in and they're setting their DVRs, setting their calendars and tuning in. And that's really all we can watch. All we can hope for is, so I'm stoked.
Yeah. I mean, I've had 2 F1 conversations with people at my office this week, which, even a couple of years ago, I thought, that never would have happened. I'm seeing F1 references in like actual talk shows, like primetime, Friday night talk shows and whatnot. Somebody came on and was talking about the Mazepins in F1, and all of a sudden my head turns and said, "Zuh?
What?
Yeah, I know that." So, it's amazing. It is kind of working its way into our vernacular. It's great. You love to see it. So
Yeah.
Let's do it again. US F1 Nation. Let's break that record. Tune in. This race should be worth the ticket. And it's going to be right in the middle of that. You talk about even better timing. It's going to probably have better timing this weekend. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the world doesn't always realize that the U.S. has a very, very historic and deep, rich love of racing. F1 is just, because of the fact that traditionally, if we were lucky, there was one race here a year. TV coverage was kind of a mess way back in the day. It just never really got, that footing here. It was always more of NASCAR, and then certainly, Indy and Indy 500, things like that. But I mean, you think about some of the tracks, Laguna Seca and Sebring, and it just obviously Indianapolis. We got some of the greatest tracks in the world here in the U.S. and the Americans love racing. You just got to give them a package that they can watch and help teach them who these guys are and get their interest, which hopefully is what we're doing on this show. Is kind of like, you need a driver, you need a team to cheer for. And once you have that, the interest starts brewing and off it goes. So next thing you know, you're addicted.
Yeah. Like I've always said, like, if you try it, you don't like it, then I can't fault you. But if you try it, you like it, come on back.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
We're always happy to have new fans, old fans, whatever type of fan you are. We appreciate you out there for sure. So our next story actually comes with a bit of a sound effect. If I get this to play right.
Gonna set my soul on fire.
It is all but confirmed that the U.S. will be hosting more than likely a 3rd Grand Prix starting next year. The Las Vegas Grand Prix is expected to be added to the F1 calendar. A tweet from Adam Stern came out and basically indicated that it's supposed to be, looks like it's going to be a night race in the U.S. It will be on part of the strip. Now, what part of the strip that will actually be? Maybe just a really small portion of it from the rumors I've read, but we'll have to see what that means. But it looks like it's going to slot in a early November time slot. So you're looking right around when typically when the U.S. Grand Prix comes in, when the Mexican Grand Prix is around there. They're probably going to kind of make either some sort of a triangle or go, I would assume, straight from Austin to Vegas and then down to Mexico. But as we've seen before, the F1 calendar doesn't always make sense. So, John, what's your thoughts on this now? Actually, it looks like it's going to become a reality.
Mind blown. Just I don't even know what to think. Like, pinch me. Am I dreaming right now? I joked a few weeks ago. If we thought Miami was expensive, I don't even want to see how much Vegas GP is going to be. We might need to I don't know. You're gonna have to work some tax magic over there, Andy. So I'm not sure how we're gonna do it, but
hashtag Outlap F1 Nation. Send us to Vegas.
Yes, we will cover every inch of that track for you. We will make it worth your while. But yeah, I mean, I'm just blown away. Like, to think of, I mean, you guys know that Singapore is number one on my bucket list, and I love that city street. I love under the lights and just the glitz and glamour of Singapore, and Vegas is like that on crack, as well. So I can't even fathom just how incredible that would be. The aerial shots and things like that. A lot of people were complaining like, hey, well, that means like a Monday morning race or something like that in the UK. Well, shoot, Andy, give it to us on a Saturday night.
No kidding.
Saturday night racing in the US is like amazing.
Make it an early Sunday deal in the UK. Yeah. I mean, you could literally. They make the Singapore race is a perfect example. I think they actually run that thing at like 11 o'clock local time or something like that, right?
Do it.
It's really late.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas is up. Trust me, nobody in Vegas ever goes to sleep before like 2 a.m. Anyways, so yeah, do an 11 p.m. or something crazy like that Vegas time. I mean, yeah, it's gonna suck for those on the East Coast, but honestly, I've woken up many a times in my life at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch some Japanese Grand Prix or something like that. So, it's one of those things you set your alarm for, or you set your DVR, you turn off your phone, you wake up at 6 a.m. and you watch that recording, without any spoiler or something like that. But yeah, this is one of those is one of I would do anything to get to that race for sure, and to see that spectacle and see those aerial shots and things like that. That's mind blowing. So,
yeah, it's going to be glitz. It's going to be glam. There's going to be fountain shots. There's going to be, could you just imagine them going past the Bellagio fountain?
Oh my God.
That would just be absolutely amazing.
There's so many spectacles. You got Paris right there. You got the Eiffel Tower, hauling at in what Caesars. Yeah, it's like right across the street practically. So, yeah, all God, it would be amazing. And I know a lot of people are saying like, why in the world does the U.S. get 3 races and things like that? Well, one, you can see the growth here. 2, F1 is now owned by an American company. Tons of American interest from a corporate standpoint. And then 3, we got 4,000 miles, from one side to the other. It's not
a different world. I mean, literally from one part of the country to the next.
Yeah.
And Vegas is literally its own sub-world inside of the country.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's the rest of the country and then there's Vegas.
Yeah. And Vegas isn't really West Coast, but it essentially gives us like a Western race, a middle race, and an Eastern race. And yeah, it sounds like Coda and Vegas would be similar. I kind of hope that there's a week between. I know logistically it'd be a nightmare. I would like it from a fan perspective. I think you may get a little bit more. It may help Coda out a little bit more if there was a week between. I could see Coda suffering a little bit if Vegas is the following week. If you got to choose one race.
Yeah.
But then again, the pricing, it might bring down some of that Coda pricing, which was a little higher this year, naturally speaking, thanks to the 400,000 people that showed up last year. So, it might balance that out again. So it may work out well. But yeah, this is amazing. And I'm friggin' stoked if you can't tell.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. I would do everything in my power to be there. Having been to Vegas a few times, it's you just got to be mindful and not go too crazy because it will take your money.
It's perfect too, because I feel like 3 days in Vegas and I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
My body's wore out.
By the end of that weekend, I'm ready to get on the plane and come
so this
home.
Is perfect. An F1 weekend, and I got a little downtime. During the day, I can do a little gambling, have a little fun, and then it's flying on back. It's the exact perfect duration to be in Vegas.
Yep. So that definitely looks like it's going to be a reality. There's also a story brewing that F1. I mean, Stefano Domenicali gave a interview that I think is going to debut on the Sky coverage this weekend. That they're also looking at maybe 4 or 5 different venues, not only Vegas, but potentially a South African venue to come back onto the calendar. So, I mean, you just would think with all these ticket sales going as crazy as they is, striking while the iron is hot is important, but at the same time, we got to realize the strain that a 25 or more race calendar is going to bring. I mean, we're at 22 now, and it seems like all these teams are struggling to make it. We're going to probably have a 23rd race. We'll talk about that in just a second. But it looks like we're kind of at the upper end of what's going to work. So, where do you think the balance is here, John?
I mean, it's tough because at the same time, a second ago, I'm like, jumping for joy for another third race in the U.S. But I mean, I've always said, and maybe it's just because it's kind of the time period that I started watching, but I've always loved like that 18 race. That's like it's always been like the perfect spot for me because you appreciate it so much more. Because sometimes it sucks. You'd have to wait 3 weeks for an F1 race, from the last one. But you were like really geared up for it, and you cleared everything under the sun. Obviously we do that now from a podcasting perspective, but before podcasting world, you cleared your calendar. You made sure everyone knew I got F1 on this day. Don't bother me at 7 a.m. And now it's week after week after week. I mean, we're already stretching 10 months on essentially a 23 race calendar. You got to have some downtime, and honestly, from a crew perspective, like that's the thing. Like, how do you maintain the cost perspective and crew working conditions? Like, you almost need a split crew, but then you're going to drive up your costs. So you got to find that balance there. Is F1, is it going to be kind of like, NFL where the teams get a portion of the, the TV money, the rights there, or is F1 going to start doing something similar to that and maybe raising the, the prize money or something like that on the constructor side to make it worthwhile and kind of help balance out some of these things. I don't know how that would look exactly, but I feel like right now we're kind of pushing. Like I'm going to be interesting to see 23 races. What is that really going to feel like? Because last year was pretty exhausting. I know the crews were beyond tired, and we had barely a 3-month turnaround, and we were right back.
I think we were pretty darn tired by the end of that season.
It was like triple header, like break, double header, break, triple header to end the season. It was a lot in 2 months. Like 7 races in 2 months was a lot. It was a hell of a lot of recording hours, for sure. So I can only imagine flying and spending hours upon hours at the track trying to rebuild cars. So I don't know. What do you think is that sweet spot there?
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple of things that I would want to make sure. We're talking about going into new places. I love bringing this sport to other places, especially ones that deserve it. But we also got to keep, and I do think Liberty is going to do a good job of doing this. You keep the certain venues that are just sacrosanct. You got to keep your spas. You got to keep your Monzas. You got to keep Silverstone or definitely for sure a British. A UK presence. Yeah. You have to keep those kind of things and not sacrifice one of those venues for something necessarily new. But I don't mind seeing the circus go to somewhere new because one, it gives a wild card for all the teams to need to prepare for. And two, it allows the sport to grow. And obviously we've seen the product work. I mean, I like kind of within 20, I thought the sweet spot was close to like the 20 in terms of number of races, where you want each weekend to feel special and feel important and feel significant. You don't want these blending in from one to the next. Like that triple header at the end of the year, it felt like just one giant race weekend that kept going. Yeah. Just so I get both sides of it, but I do want to see. What I think they're going to ultimately have to come down to is some sort of a rotation where like some years you see a French Grand Prix and maybe other years the French Grand Prix drops off and we go to some other European country or, same thing like in the US, like maybe one year we have 3 races, maybe one year we only have 2, but then we have somewhere else kind of in the same hemisphere, Yeah. I know there's an Argentinian track down in that part of the world that I think would benefit from an F1 race if they could ever get the track, good, because I know MotoGP struggles down there. But
what do you think too? We got places like Germany, and Germany's a whole kind of hot mess just from a promoter standpoint. But you got obviously 2 phenomenal tracks in Germany. You got Malaysia, which is you and I have talked. I mean, it's a favorite for both of us for sure. There's so many tracks even that we've already been to that we could bring back in countries that don't have an F1 presence and haven't had it for a while that I think would be, you got a Schumacher on the grid, it'd be a prime time to get Germany back on the calendar. Right. So, I mean, if you're trying to get everything done in 10 months, that's 40 weeks. So how many races do you realistically want to try to fit in a 40-week span, and that includes a summer break too. So really it's like 36 weeks ish in there. So you don't want to the triple headers. I don't mind the double header. I think the triple headers get a little much. So trying to balance that load. But yeah, I mean, I'd be cool with that 20-ish race, 21 somewhere in there. I think that's a nice sweet spot. But yeah, there may need to be some rotation. It's kind of like back when Germany, I mentioned that earlier. But if you're going to Hockenheim and Nürburgring, flip flopping years, and maybe you do, Miami's got a long deal. It's a mess, but it's one of those things like maybe you do Miami and Vegas and flip flop it or something, and have Coda be a consistent one. Something like that. I think like you're mentioning, I think that'd be a perfect setup. Will they do that? I don't know. I think they'd love to have 40 races.
It seems the strategy has been lock these venues up, lock them up for a long time, and kind of throw away the key. And if you want new, then it's more. So yeah, we'll have to see kind of how this goes. But it was interesting that a story came out today, and it looked like it seemed to ruffle a bunch of feathers because whenever you talk calendar, everybody kind of goes a little crazy, one way or another. But I think it's at least it's a good problem to have. We're not looking for venues, and nobody's shutting them out at the door.
Yeah, I think maybe what we should do at some point in the near future is maybe have a segment where we look at the calendar and kind of see if we can find the current deals in each one. Yeah. And then try to see what that would look like, mapping that out. Because you're right, we have several races now that are locked up for the next decade, which is insane.
Plus,
yeah, exactly. So, factoring all that in, it'd be interesting to kind of build out our own calendar, our wish list calendar, with factoring that. That'd be kind of cool to see.
So that's a perfect transition. Speaking of one race that is not on the calendar and has been locked out, that would be the Russian Grand Prix. And it looks like we're going back to Qatar. That looks to be the favorite, at least at this point, to replace the said Russian Grand Prix, the Losail International Circuit, before they rebuild their permanent F1 track on another part of the country. John, thoughts on heading back to Qatar? I thought it was a decent race last year, but we saw that the tires all kind of gave up there at the end, but it gave us some drama.
Yeah, I think on this version of car, if what we saw last week continues, and Lord, we hope it does, where you can stay within, close proximity of other cars and hopefully overtake. I think that track, LaSalle, could suit the current car. I know Miami is built kind of similar, has some swooping curve. With this new car, it doesn't appear that you necessarily need those, hard braking 90-degree type turns in order to make overtakes. It sounds like, it may be hopefully looking like it can be done more naturally. So yeah, I think Qatar could suit us. Yeah, I agree. The racing last year was okay. It was fine. It was a decent race. Nothing to maybe write home about because we had so many great races last year, and that could be why it's kind of down on our list. But the crowd was obviously quite low last year that we joked about. Hopefully,
if you were there, you probably got a camera shot of you.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you got your own dedicated 10 seconds of fame for sure. So hopefully it's a little bit better. That maybe they have a little bit more notice. I don't know. It's when was the Russian GP slated? Do you remember?
Right around after I think Zandvoort.
Okay.
So it was right around that time.
So, hopefully we get a better crowd there, and there might be some excitement with the new car and things of that nature. Looking forward to the new track, obviously, but I think as a 1-year deal, obviously Malaysia is still out there. Would still love to just go back to Malaysia. Be perfect. But yeah, I think it's a suitable place, and it kind of fits the rotation of the calendar fine. So I'm good with it.
All right. So we did have a few listeners chime in with their thoughts on basically what they wanted us to talk about. So a couple questions have come in. First one is from Pedro, who asks, what do we think about the pace for Alpine, and could they improve this weekend in Saudi Arabia? My personal thought is I think Alpine kind of slotted in where I kind of thought they were going to slot in. But I think they can, given, if they hook their car up and can suit it. I think their base is like positions 8 and 9, basically on the grid, and maybe they can pull off a P5, a scant podium here or there, if the circumstances come into it. It looks like a decent car. It doesn't look like it's truly all the way developed, but I would say that about the vast majority of the grid at this point. So with a learning curve being vertical, if they can discover something quicker, there's no doubt I think they could punch above their weight and maybe pull a shock win or definitely get on the podium again.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know if it'll happen this week. I mean, the interesting is, despite both these races, the last one in Bahrain and obviously Saudi Arabia, both of them being night races, both being in the desert, they're two very different types of tracks. We were talking last week about McLaren and these low speed curves just tearing, destroying them. Mercedes having the same issues. This one has a lot of high speed, medium, high speed corners, very, very high pace. So we don't really know, how that'll suit the Alpines or how that'll suit the Mercedes. We don't even know how that'll suit the Red Bulls or the Ferraris, for that matter.
Right. Right.
So it could potentially, shake some things up a little bit. If I were betting, I would bet, that they're going to be somewhere in that mid to later mid pack, somewhere in there, like you're mentioning, Andy. But for the year, I would be shocked if they didn't grab a podium or two this year for sure, and be, somewhere in that, 5 to 8 range, at least one driver on a consistent basis somewhere in there. So for sure, they've got two. Ocon has proven he's a solid driver. And
he had a really good showing at this track last year. So
yeah, very true. Very, very true. So, I certainly think it's possible that we'll see some nice shine from them this year.
Yep. And our other question comes from Eric from the Discord channel, and he wanted to know where does basically everybody sit in terms of penalty points. So this is always kind of a moving target. So penalty points do roll off 1 year after they go on to your super license. So where you are today isn't necessarily where you are going to be later on, but the current state of play is kind of as follows. Yuki Tsunoda leads everybody in this category. It's a dubious category to be leading in, but he currently has 8 penalty points on his license. Max Verstappen has 7. Sergio Perez has 7. Latifi and Vettel both have 6. Bottas, Stroll, and Norris each have 5. Ocon, Gasly chime in again at 3. Alonso and Hamilton each have 2, and George Russell gets the Lady Bing trophy right now for sportsmanship in F1. He only has a sole penalty point on his license.
Yeah, and I lost count there, but that leaves 7 or 8
a whole bunch of them with nothing.
With nothing, yeah,
0.
So, and the important thing is, you have, once you reach 12 points, you're obviously racing or facing a DQ essentially, or a
race ban.
Yeah, a race ban. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you, Andy. We've never seen that, or at least not in this particular fashion. Have we seen a driver be banned from a penalty point situation in modern day? So I think it's probably unlikely. And to Andy's point, just because you have 8 today, if 2 of them occurred, on April 1st of 2021. Then that means that you'd be down to 6 next week. So that's how it rolls. They don't all drop off, but how the amount of chunk of points that you had rolls off on that yearly basis. And usually we've seen what's the most points we've seen at one time? 3 maybe?
I want to say, 3 is pretty bad. I mean, I was going to mention just Lando Norris because he's going to have 3 of them come off after the Azerbaijan weekend, because if you remember, he got that penalty for the red flag incident, and the FIA just decided to make an example out of him and say, well, you come in when we tell you to come in, dang it, and there's 3 penalty points for you. So I mean, that's usually probably the worst type of offense you're going to get, is some sort of I've never seen it more than 3.
Yeah,
unless you did multiple things wrong in a particular session.
Yeah, I believe I think Latifi got hit with a similar situation too. I know Yuki had some of his points are from crossing the line.
Austria, or the 2 times he missed the white line in Austria.
Yep.
I think you've got 4 of them there.
So
2 points each.
So it's probably not going to be an issue. But obviously you've got some heavy hitters there with Max and Checo right there with 7 each. So they're in the ballpark, but it's probably not something that you
I was going to say, I think
too concerned about.
The closest we've ever seen anybody come to a race ban has been within 2. I think at one point somebody was carrying 10. I don't think I've ever seen it ever more than that.
Was that
usually
Hamilton?
At that
I'm trying
point,
to think who that was.
Well, I'm trying to remember who the heck it was, but I want to say it was that's like the closest I've ever seen where like, okay, that person has to be on their best behavior this weekend. Otherwise they could face a race ban. And then like points would roll off. So,
yeah, I remember Hamilton had a chunk of points coming in from the Albon days.
Yep.
In rapid succession, had a chunk coming in. Those two were like magnets there for a little while. But yeah, it's probably not something you have to be worried about, but it's definitely something. If it becomes more of an issue, we'll definitely cover it throughout the year for sure.
Yep, so. Definitely. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We will come on back and we will hop into our Jeddah track facts and do our predictions game in just a few minutes. So come on back. All right, welcome back to Season 4, Episode 8 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our Saudi Arabian Grand Prix race preview. We're going to go ahead and drop our green flag and get into the track facts of the Jeddah Corniche circuit. Those are brought to us by Pirelli Motorsport. John, tell us about the Saudi Arabian circuit.
Yeah, so obviously, like you mentioned, we'll be in the city of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. This week we have 50 laps. The track length is 6.174 kilometers or 3.836 miles. So it's quite the doozy. Tire selection this week is right there in the middle, same as last year. Obviously, we're running 18 inches, but same compounds last year, C2, C3, and C4. So right dead in the middle of the range. Track characteristics, traction is a 2 out of 5. Braking is a 2 out of 5. Lateral load is a 3 out of 5. Tire stress is a 3 out of 5. Track evolution, which is a new category from Pirelli this year, is a 4 out of 5. So a lot of change throughout the race or throughout the weekend. Probably due to sand and other factors that happen in the desert. Asphalt grip, 3 out of 5. Asphalt abrasion, 2 out of 5. And downforce, 2 out of 5. So it's definitely one to crank down the wings and see how fast you can go. Lap records for this one, both of them held by LewisHamilton. Obviously, we only had the one race there. Qualifying was a 127.511 last year by Hamilton, and the race lap record was a 130.737. Most wins, obviously just the one for constructors and driver. We had LewisHamilton and Mercedes who won last year. Andy, what's the circuit like?
One word, fast, really fast. As we saw with Max Verstappen's qualifying lap last year, sometimes a little too fast. Average speeds around this circuit are set to be right around 252 kilometers an hour, and that's quicker than Silverstone. Second on the calendar, basically only to Monza. That's the Temple of Speed, and quite simply, it's the fastest ever street circuit. If you want to call it a street circuit, I guess they let a car go on it and call it a street circuit, but it's the fastest ever in Formula One. So this track features the most corners with 27 turns, many of them quick bends as the drivers wind their way around the Jeddah waterfront. In terms of weather, this is going to be a dry weekend. Qualifying Saturday is going to be sunny during the day, becoming very windy late, so that's something to keep an eye on. High will be 84 degrees in the heat of the day. Falling to 69 degrees. So once the sun goes down, track's going to grip up. So we should see a lot of track evolution. Winds out of the northwest during the day at 20 to 30, but even at night, 15 to 25 miles per hour. So the wind gust could be a factor this weekend. For the race day, mainly sunny. During the day, high of 91 degrees. So that is very, very toasty. Winds again out of the northwest at 10 to 20, dropping to around 71 after the sun goes down. Again, those winds will still be up. Again, 10 to 20 coming out of the northwest. So a lot of invisible weather, really, to kind of to keep in mind over the course of the weekend. You get a bad puff, you could be spinning out and hitting the wall.
So, Andy, I know you watched like practically every minute of preseason testing that was available. Was wind ever a factor in testing? Was it as are we as susceptible as we've been in prior years to wind with these new cars that you've seen so far?
It looked like if you got a significant amount of gusting, which the direction of the wind is very, very important, obviously, even with these cars. Yes, the ground effect, but you definitely want to have more of a headwind. I mean, that just helps your car grip up a lot better. You don't necessarily want a tailwind going into especially a sharp hairpin like the Bahrain turn 1. So yeah, if you got a gust right as you were hitting that, you saw a lot of people, especially in turn 1 and turn 10, going very wide, trying to get on top of the wind gusts. So that it played a factor. And I would assume it's going to play a factor this weekend.
Yeah, and with a track with essentially track limits governed by concrete walls, you don't want to venture too far beyond the white line.
No, as we've seen, if you miss just a tiny corner, and I look back at Verstappen's qualifying, in Q3 last year, it was going to be a great lap, and then it just that slight little bit over the line, and it bites you. And there is no give in this track. If you miss a corner and you're not flat out, or you're going to be flat out through most of it, you're probably going to end up in the wall. So this could be a very much a race of attrition. Could be on the cards this weekend. So it's going to be entertaining to watch, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got rhythm sections essentially from like turn 4 to turn 12, and then again from like 14 all the way to 22, really, maybe even 24 technically. And yeah, if you're just like, if you're watching motor racing or, motocross or anything like that, you go to the rhythm section, you get one thing wrong on the whoops and it's game over. You're going over the handlebars. It's going to be the same thing here. You're going to have to be perfect throughout. And unlike Coda and some other places where you've got plenty of runoff in the S's and to the rhythm sections, you've just got some giant walls here that will be happy to ruin your day. So
and 3 very distinct DRS zones, and we've seen DRS already be at least with the one race of data point that we have, be very, very powerful. So you're looking at the 25, 26, 27 complex. That's all got a DRS zone. The main straight, obviously, as you cross start finish, and then between 20 and 22, it is 3 turns. It's really more. It looks like more of like an arch type of shape there, but that's got a DRS zone as well. So if you're able to follow more closely, you would think you're going to have more opportunities for more dive bomb moves. We saw last year what happened when people made dive bomb moves. So this could be a lot of fireworks both in the sky and on the ground this weekend. So definitely want to tune in.
Yeah, and last year at least it had one of the greatest drone shows that I've ever seen in my life, the light shows. Exactly. So definitely worth tuning
I would imagine that's going to be on display. It will be nice to actually see with the circuit being now finished. They've had 3 months to hopefully finish all of the buildings. So it's not that they're putting it together. I thought about trying to grab the quote from the old Speed movie with Keanu Reeves where they're going, "This highway isn't finished." What? It's finished on the damn map. No, it's not. There's a gap.
That's pretty much this track in a nutshell last year.
Yeah,
I still remember. Was it F3 or F2 that was there last year? I'm trying to remember.
It was F2, and they were still literally putting it together.
Yeah, drivers like live tweeting, and walls are still being put in. It's like a pavement truck rolling by, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. Racing starts in like 9 hours, but we're good.
But they managed to pull it off. They managed to, put enough Band-Aid on it so that it held together. But we should actually see what this circuit looks like proper, with a chance to actually get it, I think, properly rubbered in. So like I said, I think this is going to be a very, very entertaining weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
On setup. So we're now going to get into our little game. Dang it doesn't want to play.
No, of course not. You need to get some Bob Barker for you?
Yeah, a little bit. Never mind. We're just going to cut this. Oh, there we go.
It was worth the wait, Andy.
At least it eventually. Good things come to those who wait. It's our co-host prediction challenge. We have our enhanced security protocols. We have hid each other's lap times from each other properly this time. So there should be, if we're Price is rating, well, it's because it's not for lack of trying. So hang on, I'm going to...
Great minds, right?
John, I was going to say, John, if you wanted to actually put in the combination and unlock all of our picks.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
Okay. So as we are apt to do, we will start with the qualifying pole sitter. Last year was LewisHamilton on that 127.511. We will just read the people who aren't here. First, Deanna is going with a MaxVerstappen pole. James is going, not surprising here at all, with a Charles Leclerc pole, although I think both of those picks are more than reasonable. John, what do you see for qualifying pole sitter?
So I think Max is going to be on a vengeance for this week. Obviously, it was extremely fast last year at this track. They've got some great aero. They're nice slipstream. Ferrari's got the motor, but I think I'm going with Verstappen for Saturday at least.
Yeah, I will actually agree with you completely on that. I think Max Verstappen's going to take the pole. I think we're going to see the end of the lap that didn't happen last year. I think it's one of those things that just kind of eats in his, psyche, and he's going to want to just purge that as quick as possible. So, Fernando Alonso, if you want to be near a camera while we're watching Max again, that would be great. I do think Verstappen's going to take at least the pole for this weekend. So in terms of lap time, Deanna has a 127.500. James has a 127.526, so not quite on top of each other. John, what do you have for a qualifying lap time?
I'm not too far off. I'm a 127.799. So I'm in the ballpark. And honestly, I feel like that's probably too slow, honestly, but we'll see.
Oh, wow. We think everything. Well, I mean, it's interesting. I guess I'm the outlier here. I saw cars that didn't quite make lap time last week. So I'm going to roll with that. And I'm going to say it'll be fast, but I don't think it's going to be that fast. I got a 128.758. So maybe I'm the outlier, but we'll see.
Well, I'm glad there's at least a little bit of there's a gap between you and I that maybe one of us can, one way or the other fall into. And maybe I can steal a point there. Yeah, in retrospect, I think I feel like the three of us are going to be a little fast on that one, but we'll see. Anything could happen.
We'll see.
You get nice.
Don't let my opinion. I mean, I could be just as wrong as anybody else. I mean, it's brand new cars at a track we've only been to once.
You get a strong DRS and a wind coming in the right direction, and who knows? Anything could happen here. So, and a pit stop for Verstappen, anything's possible. So,
yep. So as to the switching over now to the race and the race podium. Deanna has Max Verstappen taking the win, followed by Charles Leclerc and then Carlos Sainz. James has Charles Leclerc taking the win. Again, I don't know that we're surprised at that. But again, that's a reasonable pick so far, with Max Verstappen coming in second and Ferrari teammate Carlos Sainz rounding up the podium in third position. John, what do you have for the race podium?
So I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm probably going to regret this Sunday night, but you only live once, right? So I'm going with a Leclerc P1, a Sainz P2, and just like last week, Hamilton stealing a podium in P3. Notice I left someone out there, and I'll talk about them later.
So again, apparently I have decided to be the outlier of the group this week. Also because of my bet with James. I've got Carlos Sainz making history, getting his first win of his career. He raced Leclerc really, really hard here last year. And I think if he has a straightforward weekend, he could come over the top. But I'd love to personally see it happen. So that's my rooting interest this weekend. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, followed closely by Max Verstappen, because I think they will finish the race this week. And Charles Leclerc will definitely be up there. It's just going to be, I think, a fun battle between Leclerc and Verstappen for P2. And I do see Verstappen probably coming out a little bit on top, at least this weekend.
I can get behind that.
So, so moving on to our fastest lap and the driver. Deanna is going with Charles Leclerc taking the fastest lap on a 1:30.995. James also has Leclerc taking the fastest lap at a 1:31.326. John, what you got for fastest lap and your driver?
I'm also going to follow Leclerc in this one as well. I'm going to with a little bit slower, a 1:31.999 on this one.
All right, very good. Apparently I am just going to be the outlier this week. I don't know. I just didn't, I got the wrong Kool-Aid or something, but, I'm going with Max Verstappen to take the fastest lap. My lap time is commensurate with everybody else's this time, but it's not on top of anybody. 1:31.529.
Yeah, I'm the slowest guy on this one, so maybe that'll work out well in my favor. We'll see.
Yeah, there you go.
My bets here.
Yep. So our bonus picks, Deanna has selected, as she was the one that technically came in tied for last place with James. But since James picked the week before, Deanna gets the bonus picks this week. She has selected her traditional P4, P5, and P20. And for that, she's got Kevin Magnussen in P4. I like the pick. We'll see if it happens. I'll be rooting for it. Pierre Gasly in P5. That doesn't surprise me either. And Esteban Ocon in the Alpine suffering some sort of, I would assume, reliability issue and going out in P20. James has Lewis Hamilton in P4 and George Russell in P5. And he believes that Joe Granu will obviously have a tougher weekend on tap this weekend, as he'll be either the first retirement or going out in P20. John, what you got for positions 4, 5, and 20?
So for P4, I've got George Russell, followed by, with Hamilton in front of him, similar to last week. P5, I've got K-Mag, so I'm getting following last week's. Hopefully that Ferrari Haas will do something. And the driver that I left off earlier, predicting fireworks, I've got MaxVerstappen in P20, the first DNF. And I'm thinking it's going to happen early, too.
All right. Well,
you heard it here first.
Yeah, I mean, he was P19 last week, so
and he tried.
That would be a
DNF,
really tough start.
Many 6 times last year at this race? So
yeah,
why
that
not?
Would be a really tough start. So I'm going to go with P4, George Russell. I do think Mercedes will be up there. I think this should suit their car a bit better. But I do think that they are the third quickest car right now on the grid. Esteban Ocon for P5. I thought he showed so well here last year. I can't go against him. And he could have some fireworks, especially if we have a safety car and or red flag. And in P20, I'm going with Nicholas Latifi, both on pace and possibly reliability as well. I don't see him coming through the grid very quickly. So our prop bet, as we had last year, we had multiple red flags that caused all sorts of fun drama and radio messages and all sorts of stuff. So basically any sort of stoppage will more than likely result in a red flag. So our prop bet this week is how many red flags do we think we're going to have during the race? Deanna has gone with 1. James has gone with 2. John, what you got?
I'm following Deanna on this one. I'm going 1. I feel like there was a lot of emphasis on red flags last year. I feel like maybe they're maybe less inclined to have so many this year. So I'm going to say it's a last resort, and we just get the 1.
Well, I'm going to go with 2, simply because I think the nature of how these cars are going to wreck is going to force it. Like I would love to just say there would just be a safety car and they could clean it up and would know how to do that procedure. But yeah, I think it's probably going to need a red flag because I think the tires are going to go flying if, a la the Sebring wreck in WEC last week. So yeah, I do think it's going to cause some stoppages. This may be a race where you need to kind of get your pop or your meal in before you watch it because we might be here a bit beyond the normal 2 hours simply because of all the stoppages. But so I'm going with 2. I hope I'm wrong actually about that. I would much prefer not to have any, but we'll see what comes out of that.
And it also wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't more than 2, just with reliability issues on top. It's sounding more and more like fuel was not or fuel related parts was not the issue for Red Bull and AlphaTauri last week. So who knows? We may see some reliability issues, and really, there's not a ton of runoff areas. So if you have a car stop on track, if it's just a straight cleanup, it may be a safety car. But if it's anything more than that, there's any fluids down, or there's really nowhere to go, around there. So that could easily cause a few right there themselves. So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it will be something to watch for sure. I was just thinking we had so much bodywork flying off of these cars last week. This is a track that's going to be absolutely brutal on that. So, everybody's got to have stuff tucked in and nice and ready to take a pounding because you're going to have some lateral back and forth for the entirety of your lap here. So our weekend times. And our channel now, we're going to start doing that, courtesy of Andy Hall, public relations for ESPN. Like I said, thank you very much again, Andy, for the shout out. If you would ever want to come on the show, we are more than happy to help promote ESPN and ESPN stuff. We've been nothing but super happy that F1 has made the move over to this network. It's been a great partnership so far, and we're glad that it's going to continue. So FP1 will start Friday. And again, everything is going to be a little bit later than it was last year. 9:55 a.m. Eastern. That will be at ESPN2. FP2 also Friday again, 12:55 p.m. Eastern. So right in your lunch hour if you're in the Central Time Zone. Again, ESPN2. We do have access now to a lot of the Sky Extra coverage this year. So two things I wanted to point out. One, there's a show called the F1 Show, which is kind of a recap of the practices and some driver interviews. Talk about getting to know the drivers outside of F1 and outside of the track. It's a great way to kind of to get to know them. That will be on ESPN3, so your streaming platform. Check that out. FP3 on Saturday, that kicks off 9:55 a.m. Eastern, 8:55 a.m. Central on ESPN2. Qualifying on Saturday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern with the pre-show. Actually, it kicks off at, I believe, at noon. I thought it was 1 o'clock, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But you've got 11:30 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2. The pre-race show also starts Sunday, 11:30 a.m. before lights out. It's an hour and a half build-up. It's definitely worth it. That will be on ESPN proper. And race, of course, then starts 12:55 p.m. Eastern, 11:55 a.m. Central on ESPN proper. There are also some... There are also going to be some rebroadcast times. We will tweet out our kind of table. We've already kind of done that. So if you missed the race, you can still catch it on one of the ESPN different networks. Just to clarify, qualifying will be Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, ESPN2. Woo!
It's a doozy.
Then we have all these sessions to talk about.
It'd help if I could type correctly on the agenda. My bad, Andy. Yeah, you're right.
No worries.
1 p.m. Eastern on that one.
Yeah. So, qualifying in the race usually going to be the same time this year. And also, like I said, check out our Twitter as things break or developments happen. We will do our best to bring it to you. I'll do my best to try to live tweet the qualifying once again. And then catch us Sunday night. Will be at least 3 of us. Will be me, will be John, may possibly a guest. We're not necessarily sure, and hopefully Deanna, but we're not necessarily sure about that either. So we will definitely try to have at least 3 of us on to recap the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in all of its glory. Let's hope it's as fun of a show as last year. So I guess I'll just take us out and say, may all your laps be fast.